Here's just some, I'm going to intersperse some pictures so you can kind of see some of the pitching process going on. So let's go into sort of sources of funding. Pretty much, initially in this industry, it was almost all friends and family were the people who invested in the cannabis businesses. And now, that's still an option for a lot of people, is to get money from friends and family. Very recently, we've started to see venture capital get into the space. These are both firms that are developed specifically to invest in this market. Now, in most industries, a venture capital fund is like $100 million to $1 billion funds. In our industry, these are $5 to $75 million funds because we're still pretty nascent that are investing into this sector. And then we've seen people like Peter Thiel and Founders Fund investing into the sector as well. And so we're just starting to see that piece of the ecosystem of funding start to fill out. Another obvious one would be loans. Problem is, in this industry, even for most ancillary businesses, bank loans are really not really an option. And so there's a whole opportunity for both investors and entrepreneurs to take on loans, particularly if it's a business where you're getting a limited license. Loans can be a really great option because these are businesses that cash flow very quickly, and so in many cases it makes more sense to do it as a loan with a high interest rate as opposed to doing equity deals. And then you see a lot of people accessing the public markets. How many people have seen some of the press releases from some of the public companies in this space? Buyer beware. 90, I would say somewhere, somewhere between 75 and 90% of the companies that are in the public markets right now that say that they're related to cannabis are not necessarily the companies you want to be working with. That being said, there are some that are very good, and going to the public markets is a way that many companies have been able to find access to funds that are difficult to get in other places. It's a very dicey proposition. One of the things that I hear from a lot of people that work in the public markets is that when you decide to do a reverse merger and become a publicly traded company, that your whole world shifts because now you have two businesses. You have to run your business, and then you also have to run the business that is the stock side of things. And when you're a very, very small company, the incentives are part of the reason why there's a big problem in the public markets is that if you're a tiny company where your business is only bringing in you less than $1 million a year or $1 million or $2 million a year, but the opportunity on the stock is to bring in so much more, well then the incentives are misplaced, and you wind up having more incentive to write press releases than run businesses. And so it can be a real challenge. There's also a lot of legal liability in the public markets. That being said, there are a number of companies that have done it and have been very, very successful at it because there's a lot of public exuberance about cannabis. And then lastly is sort of angel investors. And that's kind of what we tend to focus on, although we have representatives of all of these other different folks in ArcView as well. But angel investors tend to be the kind of investors that people want, because angel investors, unlike venture capital firms that usually want a seat on the board and they drive a hard bargain, angel investors tend to be more the kind of people that are going to take minority stakes in companies and then also be really supportive and tend to have some value add into the mix based on their previous experience. And one of the things that I think makes the cannabis industry really unique is that we have a lot of investors for whom they're passionate about this. They're passionate about this. This is an exciting thing for them. So we have an opportunity as businesses raising money in this space to offer investors something that's a little more exciting, that kind of adds to their meaning quotient in life. And so that provides an opportunity to develop different kinds of investor relationships than you might have, that may be easily accessible in other industries.